Scientology could be called, well, you could call it a religion of religions.
Hello, hello, hello. It's Andy Nolchi, the Space Cowboy, ready to rip it up with you and my new cat called Simba. Have a look, he's a bit restless, but he's looking forward to this briefing. These are closed-door secret briefings about vital information and about the world and about Scientology that you need to know. Today's briefing is part 2 of my reading of Keeping Scientology Working and telling you the truth about keeping Scientology working. Also, just recently I finished reading Janice Gilham Grady's second book, and it was really good. It started off slow, but it just got better and better, because this book was when she was working with Hubbard on the ship Apollo, and you get all this inside information. Just it's so good for information. It's just like, oh my god, you get to actually get an idea of what Hubbard was really like, and you know what was going on with certain things. Because we've heard Captain Bill say stuff, but he filters things out because he's just trying to get us into Scientology, so he doesn't tell you the whole truth. And Captain Bill was a tranny and a crazy himself, so he's not that good. But these Janice Gilham Grady books are like just straightforward, practical, sensible data of what was going on and what she saw as she was a Commodore's messenger. So she was Hubbard's assistant on the ship, and it will ruin Scientology for you, because you will realise that Hubbard was just pretending to be this amazing OT and stuff that was saving the planet, and he was just full of shit, and he was also crazy, like literally, and he had heaps of problems, and he was a nutter. I mean, he was a nutter. Like, he would hear sounds that weren't there. You know, they'll be recording something and he'll be like, there's noise there, and when it comes to like putting on a t-shirt, and this isn't just Janice Gilham Grady who says this, it's other people who says as well. That's why I know it's the truth. You know, he'd wake up in the morning and he'll go to put on a t-shirt, and the messages will be helping him put on clothes, which I think is strange, like pretty strange, don't you think? It's like, come on, he's got assistants. You don't need assistants to help you with, you know, putting on clothes, and they would also help him like light cigarettes, and it was just ridiculous how much assistance he was getting. It was like he enjoyed having slaves around him doing everything for him. It's actually quite sick. Yeah, he would say, oh, this clothes has perfume on it. And I understand where he's coming from. Like, I'm against perfumes and that sort of stuff, and I do agree they're unnatural, and naturopaths know this, but Hubbard takes it to an insane level where he was getting them to wash t-shirts over and over again, and was saying like, I'm not going to wear that, I can smell perfume, and it was insane. Hubbard was insane, okay, and you find that out in this book. And Janice Gilham Grady isn't a Scientology hater book. You know, it's not like totally bad-mouthing him and stuff, and she doesn't hate Scientology or anything. It's just a balanced, reasonable, objective opinion of L. Ron Hubbard, and like objective like data about L. Ron Hubbard and what was going on at that time. And it's like, whoa. It makes you kind of be like, shit, I can't believe I got sucked into Scientology, you know? But I mean, I still don't deny all the benefit in a lot of my videos and stuff. That's why I still got the channel. But it's just like, I didn't know all this sort of data. I actually believe Captain Bill, where like the independent idea that, you know, it's because of governments and black PR and stuff, but you realise, no, a lot of the time it's because people actually worked with Hubbard, saw what he was really like, and found out that he was full of shit, and he was a massive liar, and that he was crazy, and he got crazy as he went on. And I don't know how he could do this, but when he wrote Mission Earth, that was extremely intelligent. It was very switched on. That's why I thought he was sane, but then it's just like, no, he obviously had this, he would sometimes go crazy. And it's like, if you look at people in the psych ward, there are probably times where they go for weeks on end where they're actually totally normal, but then they suddenly have a psychotic episode and they go crazy. Well, Hubbard seemed to have been like that, and so when he did write books or delivered certain lectures, he could come across as being totally a sane person, but then the next minute he could go crazy. So yeah, and the book just is. I think every Scientologist needs to read it if they want to live with the truth. But I think a lot of Scientologists don't want to live with the truth. They want LRH to be like Santa Claus, and they want it to be like Santa Claus. They don't want Santa Claus being ruined, and they're like 8-year-old kids that are like, I don't want to find out the truth about Santa Claus. And it's like, okay, it's fine, you can be like that. And that's why I'm not even promoting these videos much or putting effort into anything that I do, because it's just like, those people want to follow L. Ron Hubbard, then they can be that way, but they're totally conned and scammed, and it's just a load of crap. But you get benefit from the tech, like bits and pieces and stuff, but a lot of it's really screwy and causes confusion and stuff. And like, Hubbard was the biggest hypocrite. He would say one thing and do the next. Anyway, I'm going off topic, but anyway, just read the second book of Janice Gilham Grady's books. And they're real. I think they're good historical information. And man, also you find out that Hubbard was a CIA agent as well. And Janice doesn't even know this in her books, but like, Apollo was doing shifty things, being involved with governments and stuff. Hubbard was anti-communism. He was involved with naval intelligence. Clearly he was running some sort of CIA op. The Apollo ship kept on getting called CIA. Hubbard was involved with the government. And he was involved with the CIA. And then we have the remote viewing stuff, which was started by Ingo Swann, and it was involved the CIA, and that involved Scientologists who started remote viewing. And anyway, it's wild. It is just like, whoa. But like, the actual truth about Hubbard is so different, so opposite to what you get when you're involved with the church, that you just think it's bullshit, and you think the person's just making up stuff, and you can't believe it. It's so like, what the fuck? It's like global warming. The truth about it is that it's the opposite. The Earth is cooling. It's just like so opposite to what they actually say, and it's like, whoa. It's amazing. Anyway, I'll continue this Keeping Scientology Working. I'm on the second page now. But anyway, I just got to say that because I'm not going to do many more videos, and so I'm not going to do a whole video about Janice's book. I'm just going to say it at the start of this one. And obviously I can't talk about Corona at the start of this one because it gets me into trouble. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Therefore, the road before Scientology is clear, and its ultimate success is assured if the technology is applied. That's not true, but anyway. You have to understand it with Hubbard is like, and this is what's good about reading the Janice Gilham Grady books, is it gets you an idea of the sort of personality that you're dealing with L. Ron Hubbard, and then you can read his stuff and go, oh, okay, cool. I'm dealing with Hubbard. You know what I mean? Like, it's when you're doing Scientology, you're getting exposed to a character that L. Ron Hubbard has created, and that's L. Ron Hubbard, the savior of the world. And when you're doing all of Scientology, he's in that valence of L. Ron Hubbard, the genius savior of the world. And it's a fake character he created, just like any character in a fiction story. And so he plays it so convincingly and stuff, but it's not true. But when you're reading this, you have to understand. This is what his character says. Okay, and anyway. So it is a task of the association or org-sec, the HCO-sec, the case supervisor. These are just jobs in the Scientology church. See what I mean? You're studying this in a course room. You would have to spend ages looking up all these things, and then someone will check you out and be like, well, what's this? What's this? And it's just like, it's not that necessary. You know? These are just different jobs inside an org. So it is a task of the association or area sec, the HCO sec, the case supervisor, the DFP, the DFT, and all staff members to get the correct technology applied. So he's saying those people with those jobs in the org, it's their specific thing that they need to get this tech applied correctly. Getting the correct technology applied, because it relates more to their job. Like if there's a Scientology salesman, getting the tech applied correct, it doesn't really apply to them because they're not actually delivering the auditing of Scientology. They're not delivering the actual thing, the therapy. You know what I mean? They're just trying to get sales, and basically they can just do whatever they want to try and get the sale, pretty much according to Hubbard. Pretty much, and they did. And that's what you find out about in these Janice Gilham Grady books, is that, like, you find out where all these things started, like hard sell and all these crazy things, and they came from Hubbard. And then it just... Anyway. Getting the correct technology applied consists of 1. Having the correct technology. 2. Knowing the technology. 3. Knowing it is correct. 4. Teaching correctly the correct technology. 5. Applying the technology. This is just how colourful Hubbard is. I mean, essentially he's just saying, just have the tech and just do it correctly. I've written it there. Do it as I say, don't change it. But he's just so colourful and creative. He comes up with this crazy 10 points to just say that point. But anyway. 4. Teaching correctly the correct technology. 5. Applying the technology. 6. Seeing that the technology is correctly applied. 7. Hammering out of existence incorrect technology. See, when you understand Hubbard is this crazy, funny character, that's like also like insane and also like can be really angry at times, you just sort of laugh when you read this because you're just like, what the hell is this funky dude? Like, but when you don't know any of this, you're like, wow, knocking out incorrect applications, closing the door on any possibility of incorrect technology. Like, you think everything's so important. I have to memorize this and I have to know it, like really know it. You become like obsessed. And because you flunked the star rate checkouts at the end of this because there's something you didn't remember, you like, it forces you to like remember and take it so seriously and go, oh, knowing it's knocking out incorrect applications, closing the door. Because Scientology is so nutty and like Nazi and stuff, it's not even Nazi really, but it's like so Hubbardy and stuff. It's just taken so seriously. So it's just... So this document's taken just mega seriously. And you take ages to get through and you have to keep on remembering things. And they say you're not supposed to remember things. And Hubbard even says that. It's not about remembering things. But then you have to remember things when you're studying it. And if you don't remember things, and if you go, then you're like, you flunk. You know what I mean? It's crazy. 8. Knocking out incorrect applications. 9. Closing the door on any possibility of incorrect technology. 10. Closing the door on incorrect application. It's just the whole thing's... It's just a silly way of... it's just Hubbard's colourful way of talking. He's funny as. So, getting the correct technology applied consists of 1. Having the correct technology. They don't really have correct technology. 2. Knowing the technology. Okay, someone can study a lot of it and know it. 3. Knowing it is correct. Okay. That's like forcing you, knowing it is correct. So it's encouraging you to think it's correct, even though there's problems with it. But it's just like, it's brainwashing you into thinking it's correct. I mean, so much of Scientology is just getting you obsessed with Hubbard's universe. 4. Teaching correctly the correct technology. 5. Applying the technology. So that's like, actually applying the technology. 6. Seeing that the technology is correctly applied. Someone watching other auditors to make sure they're doing it correctly. 7. Hammering out of existence incorrect technology. So if you're like a Scientology teacher and you're seeing that someone's doing the technology incorrectly, then you punish them, or you get that piece of paper that they wrote it on, you throw it in the bin, so you're hammering out of existence incorrect technology. 8. Knocking out incorrect applications. So, get that out. 9. Closing the door on any possibility of incorrect technology. So you look and you think, how can we stop in the future incorrect technology coming into our organisation? 10. Closing the door on incorrect application. Anyway. 1 above has been done, and that's referring to having the correct technology. 2 has been achieved by many, and that's knowing the technology. 3, which is knowing it is correct, is achieved by the individual applying the correct technology in a proper manner and observing that it works that way. 4 is being done daily, successfully in most parts of the world, and that's teaching correctly the correct technology. 5 is consistently accomplished daily, applying the technology. I mean, this is all coming from Hubbard, who like contradicts himself and stuff, and like for example, he came up with the tech of I guess it's tech, even though it's admin, but it's admin tech, of doing like comevs, and on his Apollo ship, and this is what you hear in this Janice Gilhunt Grady book, like something, I don't know, some stuff up would happen, and it might not even be a stuff up, but Howard would be like, that's it, you're doing a comev, which is like a little Scientology court case, but like he's got a certain way of doing the comev, the technology of doing the comev, right? Some sort of fair, correct way of doing it, or whatever. But then when he says for this person to get the comev, he says, and you're going to come to this conclusion. And so he corrupts his own comevs. And that's why in the church, people might wonder, like, because many people have had dodgy comevs, like basically kangaroo courts. And Hubbard was the person who first did that. Like, he first stuffed up his own thing. The whole of Scientology, in fact, is Hubbard shooting himself and fucking up his own organisation. Like, he had the orgs going good and stuff and expanding, and then he came up with this paramilitary Sea Org, and that made it all serious and did hard sell, and that pissed people off. And then he kicked people out of the organisation who were getting too popular, so that he was like the king of Scientology, and that stuffed up Scientology. And then in like 1982, it gets blamed on Miscavige, but it seems very much like it was actually Hubbard who arranged for the missions to be slaughtered. And basically what it was that they had to pay heaps in fees or like close down. And he basically didn't like the mission holders making so much money and being more successful in his orgs. And he basically just went around with finance police, I'm not kidding, and stole their money. And so he did that. And so and shooting and stuffing up the missions was like the one of the biggest things that stuffed up Scientology, because it stopped new faces coming into the org, because the missions were getting new people in the door. So then what happened was that new people coming in became like a skeleton amount, like just a bare minimum, and then those people got hard sold like excessively, and it created like this creepy, quiet vibe around Scientology, and stopped it from being hugely popular, which it was like in the 70s. So he fucked up his own organisation, like he shot himself in the foot. It's like a classic example of an SP where they, like Hubbard says, with an SP, they stuff themselves up. He did that, and he treated his followers like, his loyal followers like trash whenever like a stuff up happened, and it wasn't even necessarily a stuff up, but he would just like severely punish them and stuff. So it ended up meaning this nutcase Miscavige rose up amongst them, who was just hell-bent, like Hubbard, hell-bent on power and being dominant and everything. And then Miscavige ended up killing Hubbard. That's actually the truth. I don't know if you know that, but Hubbard was actually murdered. Like, he was an old man anyway, but he was actually murdered. They knocked him off, and they gave shit all inheritance to his family, and Miscavige took the church for himself. He backstabbed him, basically. Man. It's just like, and Hubbard caused that, because, and he was hanging out with who's Pat Broker, who was like an alcoholic, and Hubbard was an alcoholic himself. It seems like seriously, like I'm still not 100% sure about that, because I almost can't believe it. But it's just like, whoa, Hubbard was so different to what people actually think, and I was brainwashed basically. I was sucked into it. But again, I don't regret any of it, because I learnt so much, and I realised that wow, crazy shit can go down here on Earth. And if I look back into history and stuff, and think of people, I can now think, fuck, maybe that person was as crazy as Hubbard. Like, because you hear about people and you try and understand them, and you're like, what the hell? But it's just like, whoa, like someone like Hubbard's like, I didn't even know it was possible to understand him. He's so freaking bizarre, but he's insane, right? And that's what is the thing with insane people. Their behavior is just whacked. And he comes up with like spiritual therapy, and of course an insane person, because insane people hear voices and that sort of stuff, of course, the spiritual therapy he comes up with, because he's insane, involves communicating with spirits and entities and that sort of shit, like, because he hears voices and that. And, of course, he comes up with a therapy that's dealing with that, even though there are plenty of people who probably have no problem with that, but he comes up with a therapy that involves it, because that's what the problem is that he has. And then the therapy, of course, doesn't even work, and it sends you even more insane, because it validates entities as like a legitimate thing, and people go batshit crazy on them, and that's the Scientology higher levels that are supposed to be the most amazing thing ever. They're not at all. They just they sent Hubbard insane. And it's quite possibly he made up the OT3 story. It's just like, whoa. It is just wild. Anyway, I digress. 6 is achieved by instructors and supervisors consistently, and 6 is seeing that the technology is correctly applied. See how this is just a head fuck having to read it? Like, you have to read, oh, what's 7 again? 7 is done by a few, but it is a weak point. 7, what's 7? Hammering out of existence incorrect technology. It's all like a mind mess, and that's actually kind of what the whole thing of Scientology is, because you get into it from the start, and you're just like, what is this? Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I actually think that the whole time people are in Scientology, and most people after being involved with Scientology, are all in like that MU blank phenomenon, where they're just like, what the hell? Like, they're just confused by the whole thing. It's just, anyway, it's interesting. 8 is not worked on hard enough. 8 is knocking out incorrect applications. 9 is impeded by the reasonable attitude of the not quite bright. 9, closing the door on any possibility of incorrect technology. 9 is impeded by the reasonable attitude of the not quite bright. And the reasonable refers to, and this is, you have to look up the whole reasonable concepts in order to understand this sentence, but Hubbard has this idea that when people see an out point, which is something dodgy, they come up with a reason for it, and that explains it away. It's explaining away the out point. So let's say you see a manager grabbing money out of the till in a business and putting it straight into his pocket, and it looks sus, right? And you're working there and you see that, and a reasonable person would go, oh, you know, there must be a reason for why he put that money from the till into his pocket. Like, he probably is just moving it to another part of the building or something like that. But the truth is, he was actually stealing the money, right? So reasonable people, when they look around the world, they see things and they come up with a reason. Oh, like COVID, for example. They go, oh, you know, they must have just made a mistake with the testing, or they must have just made a mistake with the vaccine, and that's being reasonable, right? And it's like, no, if someone died from the vaccine, let's look into that further. I don't think that's a mistake. You're being reasonable by just saying that, like, you know, oh, someone must have just made a mistake in a lab or something. It's just like, no, that's being reasonable. They full on wanted to kill people with the vaccine, right? That's the example. Hubbard, there are people in life. You actually learn this on a data evaluators course. It's actually very true. You'll see things in the news, in the world and everything, and all this stuff that's going on that's wild and crazy. And people who are being reasonable, like lots of average shows and normal people who don't know the truth about the world, they just be reasonable and go, oh, that's, you know, probably because of that, or it's, you know, probably because of this, or, and it's just like, no, there's more to it. So anyway, that's Hubbard's idea of being reasonable. But 9 is impeded by the reasonable attitude of the not quite bright, so closing the door on any possibility of incorrect technology. The not quite bright, people aren't that bright, Hubbard's saying. they don't close the door on the possibility of incorrect technology because they be reasonable. They go, oh, that auditor's using that made-up thing because of blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, that auditor made it up and that's squirreling, you know? But anyway, but the problem with that is that this reasonable idea, it gets confusing in itself. I mean, that's a hard idea to understand. I mean, I've been in Scientology for like 10 years and I can get it, but it's like, that sentence is just hard to swallow. Imagine if you're new to Scientology, like, what the hell? But what goes wrong with this reasonable idea is that people, I don't know, it's almost like people misunderstand it and they think being reasonable is bad. And actually using reason and being rational and logical is what the Data of Airways course is about. But what you should do in your whole life with everything is be reasonable. Like, look for reasons for things and stuff. But because there's different ways you can use words, that whole thing can get confusing. Anyway, 10 is seldom done with enough ferocity, and 10 is closing the door on incorrect application. And it is seldom done with enough ferocity. See? He's just a ferocious dude. Also, the thing with Hubbard, I know this is a different thing, but with the whole drug and alcohol thing with Hubbard, it does seem like he did them and it was kept secret. But, like, he obviously kept it secret because he knew it was out PR. But, I don't know, it's a little bit strange because he did other things that are out PR just openly and didn't try and hide it. So I don't quite know about that. But what does make me think that he was involved with those substances is that people who are nutters, they're into those sort of things. Like, they have drug and alcohol problems and stuff. And people who act irrationally and crazy and eccentric and stuff, they tend to be on drugs and those sort of things. And we know he had an addictive personality because he smoked a lot of cigarettes. He ate excessively. So I could, with that sort of personality, he was smoking a lot of cigarettes. I heard sometimes he was doing 3 packs a day. I mean, that's freaking, this is where it's like, whoa, he was aberrated. I mean, that's freaking nutty crazy, 3 packs a day. That's like, what the fuck? That's crazy. He's a full-blown out-porny OT. Full-blown. I can't believe it. When I first called Hubbard an out-porny OT, I was a little bit like, I don't know if it's right for me to say that. But now that I've looked into it further and investigated it, it's like, whoa, Hubbard was a classic out-porny OT. More so than other people. They also didn't want him to be seen publicly, also from like 72 onwards, as like the attacks against Scientology increased and Hubbard became more crazy. He also, the reason we didn't see more of him was because it was too out PR to even have him in public, and that's why he was hidden away more and more and more. You know, it's not, because some people have this body double idea about Hubbard that he like was secretly assassinated or something like that. That's not true. It's just that Hubbard was getting that nutty that it was just out-pointing for him to be in public, and he had to avoid public because he didn't want to get served by lawyers and stuff. Anyway, so the drug thing, it is, for me looking into it, it is leaning towards actually being true. He was involved with substances. I know that you can take certain substances that you can come up with spiritual information from taking them. But it seemed that Hubbard was into like the crazy drugs, like maybe some spiritual drugs, like ones that you don't even know if they're called drugs. Sometimes they're referred to as like plant medicine or something, like the psychedelics or whatever. But Hubbard seemed to have been involved with some dirty drugs and stuff, like the uppers and stuff. I don't know. It's been out pointy as what. It's just like, what the hell. Anyway, I wouldn't mind getting to the bottom of it, but it's just, you have to understand with Hubbard that, but what also enables me to believe the drug thing is because he seems to just be a complete hypocrite. Like, he would say, like, you know, in the way to happiness, like, look after your teeth, but he won't look after his teeth at all. He would say, like, eat well. He won't eat well at all. You know, he would say, like in Science of Survival, like, anger's bad and it's not how you control people and stuff, and it just interpolates people and it's bad. And then he would totally do that. So it's like, he has a total, all of Scientology, the rules just don't apply to him. And also in session, he didn't respect the rules of Scientology. And, like, he just did what the fuck he wanted. Like, do what thou wilt, but like, I agree with that, but like, you know, be sensible and nice. But he was like a wild animal of do what thou wilt. It's just like, he just does whatever the fuck he wants. Like, he was just like a real, I don't know, just a brutal animal. And so he, like, he's got specific writings where he trashes drugs and, I don't know, psych drugs and all that sort of stuff, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was doing them, because he just, there's other things all over Scientology where he says one thing publicly in Scientology, but then what he does privately is completely, like, going against that. So anyway, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are the only places Scientology can bog down in any area. The reasons for this are not hard to find. A weak certainty that it works in the 3 above can lead to weakness in 7, 8, 9, and 10. See how this rant by Hubbard, because this Keeping Scientology working document he wrote when he was angry one day, this rant is just like, whoa, you know, like. B, further, the not too bright have a bad point on the button self-importance. So I was just thinking that's reminds me of Hubbard himself. C, the lower, and anyway, and also he was totally paranoid about government agents and all this stuff, and there was government agents involved, and he freaking well knew it because he was involved with naval intelligence, and I think he was running CIA operations out of the Apollo ships, because they were going into countries trying to stop communist revolutions and stuff, because communism was taking over the world in the 60s, and now it has, but now it's a new form, different form. So that's what the CIA was about, was trying to stamp out communism. Like, they knocked off Kennedy because Kennedy was a lefty. And they wanted to go into the Vietnam War because that was a war to stop communism spreading. So it seemed like he was running things out of his ship. So anyway, so that's one of the reasons why he was so paranoid about government agents and all this stuff, because he knew about these sort of operations, and he was doing... on his Apollo ship, he was doing intelligence operations and stuff, and so it's just ridiculous. But what he would do is he would be too paranoid about government agents and stuff, just too paranoid, and it's just like, what? It's just crazy. But I do believe there were definitely government agents involved, some spies and that sort of stuff, but it just wasn't at the point that Hubbard thought it was at. And it got up to the point in like 1982, as he got more and more crazy, that just heaps of people were declared as declared as being potentially government agents and stuff, and he made them do the running program, and that was like full-blown torture, which is, the running program is the cause resurgence program. And so that's how he created it as like a way to rehabilitate these people who thought were government agents and stuff. And now the church is selling it for $2,500 at Flag. You can go and run around and have amazing wins. Oh, yeah. And it was created as like torture, like they're having to run around in the desert. Like, it's really sick and crazy. So messed up. And Miscavige cops all the blame by a lot of, people in the free zone and stuff. Like, he gets labelled as being the dude who caused all this, and that's not true. That's just... Look, Miscavige is dodgy, and he seems to be more violent than Hubbard. But he doesn't seem as crazy as Hubbard. Hubbard seems legitimately crazy. Miscavige, I wouldn't call him crazy. I would just say he's a classic Earth, power-hungry, suppressive person. But Miscavige gets blamed by it. And so it's just, people are so shocked about the truth about Scientology that they have to come up with a reason. I guess this is being reasonable. And their reason is that, no, it's bad people within the church and Miscavige who stuffed up Scientology. And it's like, that's not really true. They contributed to it. Yeah, but it's like Hubbard caused this. Okay. Like, Hubbard's not what you think he is. It's like Jesus. Christians don't realize that they just like, if Jesus saw what people think of him these days and stuff, that he'll just be like, what the hell? Like people just put up a fake character and they start believing in it, and it becomes like an urban myth, and then everyone believes in the urban myth. And Hubbard created this urban myth. But anyway, ends up getting out of hand and ends up being like, people just believe in just this bullshit. Like, I remember I did a job a few months ago and someone came up to me and said, Andy, Jesus is here, or something like that. Or Jesus is coming. And I think because of the craziness of COVID in 2020, they were implying that like the Messiah is returning, or this is the end times or something. And I think she said Jesus is real, and it's just like, Jesus is, to her, is like what Hubbard was to me, where it was just, you've just been fed all this information about this false character, and you've been adding to it, and you believe in it, and you're like, whoa, and like, it's just a fake thing. Like, it's not really real, what you're thinking and stuff. Anyway, because there's some people who are like, oh, I swear I saw Jesus, or I touched him, and all this stuff, and it's just like, I think they're going into fantasy land. Anyway, because you can keep on postulating something, and it can become sort of like, it just becomes more and more real in your mind, and then you really experience it as being real. Anyway. C. The lower the IQ, the more the individual is shut off from the fruits of observation. D. The surfax of people. That's a sentence that I hope everyone can get. The lower the IQ, the more the individual is shut off from the fruits of observation. So when you got low IQ people, they can't observe things and work out what's going on because they're just dumb, because they're low IQ. So they just... You can put them in an area and they just not that aware and they don't pick up on what's going on. But the higher IQ person can go, oh, that's what's going on. Oh, that's what's going on. Global warming is a scam. And oh, look at this. That person's got an interesting technique. And they just notice more. Whereas a lower IQ person is more like a cat, and they just sit there and they just look and they don't really know what's going on. And in life they just sort of get pushed around. They end up doing this and end up doing that, and they can't play the game of life as much because they're not smart enough to play it. So they end up just being a piece and working for some corporation, moving boxes off a shelf or something. They just can't... They just don't notice things. And I've noticed this as I've become smarter and more aware and stuff, that I can be around people and you just like... The lower IQ people, it almost amazes me how they even exist. I'm just like, wow, I don't know what it would be like walking in your shoes. But it just seems like they just have no idea what's going on. Like they just I don't know, but I remember trying to teach this low IQ person something, and it was so simple and he couldn't understand it. I'm just like, whoa. Wow. I mean, you're just going around in life not in constant MU blank phenomena. Just like, I have no idea what's going on. Anyway. The surface facts of people make them defend themselves against anything they confront, good or bad, and seek to make it wrong. The bank seeks to knock out the good and perpetuate the bad. So, I mean, it's not like I necessarily disagree with what he's saying here, but it's like, if someone runs into problems with the tech, it's basically saying it's not the tech that's the problem, it's you that's the problem, it's the person's surfax that's the problem, it's the low IQ that's the problem, it's the bank that's the problem. But I disagree. So Hubbard's an egomaniac, so everything he does is perfect, he never makes any mistakes. You have to understand the sort of personality he was. He's just the most amazing thing ever. He's the most important thing. He never makes any mistakes. And this is what you see in the Janice Chilham Grady books, is that like Hubbard would like make a stuff up and he would end up blaming it on someone else because he's like protecting his reputation and stuff. And it's just like, what the hell? Thus, we as Scientologists and as an organisation must be very alert to 7, 8, 9 and 10. In all the years I've been engaged in research, I've kept my comm lines wide open for research data. I once had the idea that a group could evolve truth. A third of a century has thoroughly disabused me of that idea. I agree with that point absolutely. Because Hubbard here is criticising that a group can evolve truth. He says here later on, like he basically says, no, individuals create truth. And they're the geniuses, and he's sort of saying my Scientology is created by me and I'm the genius and it's truthful. But when I look at Scientology, it's full of mistakes and all this sort of stuff, and it reminds me so much of a typical Earth science or a typical Earth religion. Scientology absolutely is a religion, right? I know people criticise it, but to me it's classically irrational. It classically has followers that are dedicated to it and can't think, right? And it's so similar to Christianity. I mean, it's just, to me, Scientology is like a modern version of Christianity. Just this retarded mess of contradictions and classically irrational. And people follow it because it's a good social group, because they feel interested and excited about it. And it's all like a fake belief in a Santa Claus and stuff. But Scientology, you get more out of it. And it does... If you're smart, you benefit from it, but if you're dumb, it stuffs you up. Because if you're smart, you spot the problems and you investigate rabbit holes and it makes you smarter. But if you're dumb, you just swallow it all and you just get sucked into it and you're just like, what the hell? Kind of like Christianity. Like if you're smart, then you just don't believe in it. You're like, what the hell's this? And you end up being free. But then if you're dumb, you're more likely to get sucked into Christianity. So anyway, willing as I was to accept suggestions and data, only a handful of suggestions, less than 20, had long-run value and none were major or basic. And when I did accept major or basic suggestions and use them, we went astray and I repented and eventually had to eat crow. Eat crow just means accept that you were wrong and be embarrassed about being wrong. So this is a lie here in that Hubbard, a lot of Scientology, other people are involved in it. Like firstly, he stole ideas from a lot of other philosophers and stuff, like Nietzsche and just there's heaps of other ones. And like he got Dianetics from Freud. Secondly, so he's not telling you like how many things he actually invented and stuff. Like he's making out here that he invented it all and he accepted a few things that actually work, like a little bit. Next thing is that there are a lot of Scientologists who contributed to the tech, like power processing was invented by like John McMaster or something. And a lot of other things, and Hubbard just slapped his name on it if he liked it, and then kept it. And even like apparently the TRs was invented by Hubbard's son. So it's just like he's just full of it. Again, this is why if you knew Hubbard personally and then spent time with him for a few years, and then, no, even just 1 year, spent 1 year with him, and then went to do Scientology, you would view Scientology with completely different goggles, and you wouldn't get sucked into it. But when you're coming off the street, you just don't know any of this. He comes across as being all professional and stuff. On the other hand, there have been thousands and thousands of suggestions and writings which, if accepted and acted upon, would have resulted in the complete destruction of all our work as well as the sanity of PCs. So I know what a group of people will do and how insane they will go in accepting unworkable technology. I'm certain he knows that. I mean, he foisted onto us unworkable technology. I mean, look at the clear cognition. I just realised this, or I realised, a lot of things I realise are also because I read them from other people and then I realise it for myself. But I got this from Jesse Prince, and I think his book is worth reading. But Jesse Prince mentioned how the cognition for clear is that I'm mocking up the reactive mind, right? And I always when I thought of that years ago, I thought of it in like this deep way, like, oh, I'm mocking up my reactive mind, like I'm reacting to things, I'm causing my own universe, and I'm creating my reactive mind that's making me just react to things and stuff. Oh yeah, what an interesting cognition. But Jesse Prince's interpretation of it was that no, you're mocking up your reactive mind. You're making up your reactive mind. Do you get what I mean? You're mocking it up. You're just making it up. And so people are sitting there in the chair just making up incidents and shit. And that's the EP of clear, is that because you've done hours and hours of Dianetics, you've said incident after incident, and you're just like, I'm just making this shit up. And it's just like, yeah, that's the EP. You realise that you fucking all been scammed and that you're just making this shit up. And so you're just like, what the hell? So this is where Hubbard's such a smartass, in that I think in his tech, he leaves clues for people who are smart and switched on, who can notice things. Like he leaves clues that about the connection between Scientology and Crowley's stuff. And then he leaves clues like this whole EP being, I'm mocking up my reactive mind, and it's like, people who are smart are like, they can see what's going on, but people who aren't as smart, it's like the whole of Scientology filters out the elite between not elite, the real switched on to the not switched on. And the not switched on get trapped by Scientology, and the switched on can see through these things and work it out, and they work out that they're just making stuff up. I don't know, but that really blew me out of my mind when I heard that. I was like, oh my god, because I've been looking for evidence that Hubbard was a smartass and knew he was tricking people all along with Scientology, right? And like, there's a line in OT3 where a pilot says he's mocking it all up. He says he's making it all up, right? And it's like Hubbard put a little clue in OT3 for people that, like, during that event, someone says he's making it all up, and it's like giving the smart person, they're reading it, and the smart person goes, he's making it all up, huh? Hold on a second, is this just all being made up? Like, I don't know, I think there is, apparently, yeah, it seems like Hubbard's put these little clues and stuff to things throughout Scientology for the people who are switched on to what's going on. But yeah, that whole thing of you're mocking up your active mind, I was just like, whoa. Because you're like encouraged to find these incidents, and you're told, they show you a thing, if they ask you to go to Engram, you're like, I can't remember anything, then they say, it's okay to use imagination or whatever. And like, you can end up doing it for hours and hours, and like, you're just saying things and you're making them up. And, like, I ran out of intensives, but I'd done maybe 7 hours of it, and I guess after the first, I don't know how many hours, maybe 10 hours or something, but after the first 6 or something, after I'd said like incidents that I could actually remember, like crashing a tricycle and getting stung by a bee and stuff, they had to handle me on not having incidents, and so they basically showed me stuff with Hubbard, and they're basically saying, yeah, you can just go with your imagination. It's okay. And then you get coaxed and encouraged to just sit there and just make up that you've got, like, that something happened to you. And it's just ridiculous. And like, if I'd been offered more, if I'd had more money and I was going to get more intensives, I would have continued and just made up more and more shit. And then eventually, I possibly could have said, you know what, I'm just making this shit up. Like, I'm just making up that there's these incidents in my mind and stuff. And then maybe at that point they would have said, okay, you're clear. I mean, I don't even know. Like, but it's so crazy. But hearing what Hubbard was like in his personal life, it makes you believe more and more what John Attack thinks of Hubbard, and that's that he was a smart-ass narcissist SP, basically. And that he was a prankster, a black magic prankster who was tricking people, and it makes more sense when you look into it. I shouldn't talk about things I'm not totally sure about, but I heard Hubbard said that Hubbard's son said that Hubbard would laugh at how dumb people are and how much you can con them. And I don't know, there's evidence there leaning towards that he was clearly very good at reading. He had a great memory, could think quick, could spot conspiracies. He was switched on and aware. And but he was also a messed up dude, but it makes me think that he was conning people with his religion. From day one, you look at the Dianetics book and it just exaggerates everything. It's classic salesman talk. It's like he's laughing, like, I'm going to make all this money off this book, or I'm going to create an awesome, powerful religion from this, and I'm going to take advantage of all the dumb people. Anyway. By actual record, the percentages are about 20 to 100,000 that a group of human beings will dream up bad technology to destroy good technology. As we could have gotten along without suggestions, then we had better steel ourselves. That just means make us strong, to continue to do so now that we have made it. This sort of way of speaking, people don't use these words like eat crow and steal yourself. Hubbard's from a whole different generation. So this is, again, when you get hit with this and you just... The mainstream education these days literally graduates people who are illiterate. Like, honestly. And then on top of that, you're reading stuff that's like from the 60s that is written in a different way. And it's written by Hubbard, so it's complex. So you're just like, what the hell? But these sorts of things are actually normal speak for people of that age group. English has actually changed since the 60s. And I noticed this when I read a book. I read A Space Odyssey, you know, that 2001 Space Odyssey movie. I read the book for that. And just before it, I read a modern book, and it was so much easier to read in the 60s book. I mean, I just was like, what the hell? It was actually reminded me a lot of Hubbard stuff, where you just like, you're almost reeling while you're reading it, because you're just like, whoa, like, you just can't get it. You can't sink it into your head because you're not trained in that type of English. English was different in the 60s. And so this is what you run into in Scientology, and why it's all like an MU phenomena, because you're constantly reading stuff that's in a type of English that's people don't talk these days. So you're like, whoa. And you just think, wow, this guy's so smart, but you're just like, nah, this is how they spoke back then. Or you think you must be dumb or whatever, but it's just like, it is actually hard reading English from that back then. Like, the difference was noticeable. It's like, it takes probably more than twice as long to read a book of the same amount of pages, but if it was written in the 60s. Like, nowadays people are much more straightforward and don't use all these fancy words, and it's much more direct, and it's much easier to understand. You can just fly through a modern written book. But things in the 60s, they had these weird expressions that you just wouldn't understand unless you were back in those days and brought up in the 50s and stuff. Anyway, This point will, of course, be attacked as unpopular, egotistical, and undemocratic. It very well may be, but is also a survival point, and I don't see that popular measures self-abnegation, I think that means like attacking yourself, and democracy have done anything for man but push him further into the mud. See, Hubbard was against democracy, right? Because he knew that actually the best form of government is dictatorship, and it is, because democracy is a scam. Democracy ends up being where the people don't have anything to say. It's just a bunch of lawyers who are called politicians who stand up in suits and argue bullshit in whether they have their political meetings of government and stuff, and they're usually bribed, and they don't do what the people want. They usually do what whoever, some rich dude has given them money and helped them get elected, wants them to do. And so the whole of democracy is fake, because it makes people think that they have a vote and that their vote makes a difference, and it doesn't. And when one of these politicians comes along like Trump, who actually is different, or Bernie Sanders, they end up just getting the election rigged so those people don't get in. Even though it's supposed to have been, the past few years are supposed to have been all about Trump and Bernie Sanders. But it hasn't. They just totally kicked Bernie Sanders out, and it was Trump, but they just bagged him the whole time when he was in power. And then they rigged the election, he was supposed to win it. So it's like, not only if they didn't rig the elections, it would still be bullshit. Alright? Because they've also pulled a lot of the power out of the president role. Presidents used to have much more power. Now they're more just these fake roles where these pretty people in suits stand there and argue about things and make minor changes, but you can't really make any major change. They've made the role like just a PR role, you know. And the people think that their guy's going to change things, and it doesn't and stuff. And that role is quite powerless, because if he had a lot of power in that role, I think Hubbard would have done more things, but I don't think he could. I think his hands were tied. It's just a publicity thing. It's bullshit. It's just there to make people think that they make decisions, where people actually behind the strings determine what's going on in a democracy. So a democracy is just freaking fake. The only form of democracy that kind of works is the way Switzerland does it. And Switzerland has a democracy where, like, each law they want to change, the whole nation has to do a vote on it and stuff. And that's a much better form of democracy. Now, it's like, the only thing I've ever voted on is some gay vote. That was the only thing I remember making this decision about. That's the only time I was consulted, but the rest of the time, it's just lawyers standing there arguing about things, and the lawyers vote on it, and they're all bought out, and it's just disgusting democracy. Anyway, but Hubbard being against democracy is interesting, because when he was on the Apollo ship, visiting countries and stuff, he was encouraging right-wing dictatorships and stuff in those countries, and the CIA was encouraging that and trying to stop the communist takeover of those countries. And then he would run into trouble and have to flee the country. And then Hubbard would say, oh yeah, the attacks are coming from, like, they're attacking Scientology and stuff, and we're getting discriminated as a religion. And it's like, no, it's because you and your freaking old Apollo ship were doing intelligence operations. You were being shifty and doing sneaky stuff. I mean, it's like, whoa. Like, most people don't get that Hubbard was an intelligence operative. And in Mission Earth, the books, the main character, which I guess Hubbard is trying to make you think is him, because he's like the savior character, the Jeddah Hella guy, he was a naval officer. No, sorry, not a naval officer, like a jet officer, working for the CIA, like doing a mission within the CIA. And it makes you wonder, because L. Ron Hubbard was a Navy intelligence officer, and he could have gone into the CIA and could have been doing stuff for the CIA, but he was actually really a naval intelligence officer. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, he gives away clues in his books and stuff, that I absolutely think that's the case with Hubbard. And he was CIA, you know. And then you got stupid Captain Bill going, oh yeah, the conspiracy is attacking us and accusing us of being CIA so they can discriminate against Scientology. And it's just like, come on, Captain Bill, you don't know what was actually going on. Hubbard was doing stuff. It's just like, there were too many people accusing the church of being CIA, you know, and that's why Scientology was getting attacked by governments because Scientology was running intelligence ops. You start a church and run intelligence ops out of it, and you'll find that you'll get governments coming after you. You know what I mean? Anyway, you can't just run an intelligence organization within your church and expect to just get away with it. And if you look at it, the FBI in America invaded the church, right, and raided it, right? But it wasn't the CIA, it was the FBI. So here's the thing, you know. And the CIA would love to have, they did it with the Jonestown Massacre, with cults. They were doing stuff secretly within a cult, and then when everything stuffs up, it all gets blamed on the cult and the cult leader. So they were doing stuff within Scientology, but then when problems come about, then it just gets blamed on Scientology, and you never know the CIA was involved all along, you know? Anyway. This point will of course be attacked as unpopular, egotistical and undemocratic. It very may well be, but it is also a survival point, and I don't see that popular measures, self-abnegation, and I think I've already read this. Currently, popularity endorses degraded novels. Self-abnegation has filled the Southeast Asian jungles with stone idols and corpses, and democracy has given us inflation and income tax. Democracy is actually like a cover for communism. So our democracies are actually really commie bullshit. And anyway, it starts off as being democracy, and then it gets more and more into being just, it moves into socialism, then communism. So democracy is just an eventual path towards communism. And it's no good, actually. I mean, how can you give everyone a vote when there are people who are like, it's just stupid. But there are people who are like, of course they're going to vote to, like, if you've got a whole large amount of the population that are degenerates, of course they're going to vote for increased taxes on the rich and stuff, because they're too dumb to work and produce anything. So they want to take things from their people down the street they see with a nice house who work hard. They want to take that person's belongings. So how can you do that? It's just ridiculous. But the American system was actually, I think, a constitutional republic, which is where it isn't really a democracy, because if the majority vote a certain way, they can't do that. So if the majority vote to take people's money in income tax, it's not allowed, you know what I mean? But America, which was awesome, which what made America so awesome, because it was a republic or whatever, it's moved more into a democracy and then socialism, and now it's, in certain parts, it's full-blown commie, and they're the places where COVID's running rampant. Texas still looks pretty cool. Our technology has not been discovered by a group. True, if the group had not supported me in many ways, I could not have discovered it either. But it remains that if in its formative stages it was not discovered by a group, then group efforts, one can safely assume, will not add to it or successfully alter it in the future. I can only say this now that it is done. Yeah, and you have to think about this democracy bullshit when it comes to a business. If you've got a local fish and chip shop, do you want to run that fish and chip shop like a democracy, or do you just want one smart guy in charge? You want one smart guy in charge. And when it comes to like a big company like Toyota or something, you just want one good president that has a lot of power vested in them. You don't want everyone having to come together and vote on things. Like, if you look, whenever you're coming together and vote, you have to go on what the average intelligence of the group is. So you could have like two really smart dudes, but you've got a room of people where the average intelligence is low, and you've got two really smart dudes. You want one of them to be the president. You don't want them to vote on every decision, because you've got so many dumbasses in the group, the vote is always going to be 4 for, and 2 against. And it's always going to be the wrong decision because they're dumber. So you suggest you're going to become susceptible to the dumbasses that you have to work with. And I don't mean to be rude, but like I'm just saying from the point of view of, you know, you're running like a Toyota business or whatever, you know, and you got all these dudes in a room and they're deciding on what, like a decision about what to do with a car or something. They're not all going to be smart. you want, I don't know, it's like a football team or something. Like, it's like, who's going to be in the football? You got all these footballers to choose from. You choose the best one and you put him on the field. You don't go, well, let's all just do a vote and decide on, like, I'm trying to think sports-wise how to give an example, but I mean, sport, it's like, it's just funny because sports you can just discriminate like there's no tomorrow. You can totally go off intelligence and who's the best all the time in sport. It's just nothing wrong with it. But in other areas, because of leftism and bullcrap, you can't, you know, you have to be more democratic. And it's like, no, it's just not right. So when it comes to a nation, you want to treat the nation just like you treat a sporting field. You find the smartest dude there, the best dude for the job, and he is the one that makes all the decisions and stuff. You know, that's what you do. You don't just do like a vote on who's going to make all, like you don't just do a group decision. The group decision always comes up with bullshit answers. Anyway. So see how this document, which confuses people, that has false information, has also got great information in it, and it's a classic example of Hubbard's stuff. Like, it's just, you have to sift through it all and think for yourself. I can only say this now that it is done. There remains, of course, group tabulation or coordination of what has been done, which will be valuable, only so long as it doesn't seek to alter basic principles and successful applications. Now what's funny about this is this was first written in 1965, and guess what, after this, his so-called perfect tech, he needed to release expanded grades, and he needed to release, I need to do this, and I need to fix up that, and it's just like, but Hubbard, I thought your tech was perfect, and it's like, no, he's full of shit, Hubbard. And this is like, he did the same thing with, what he got away with the first few years of Scientology. Once he realized he could get away with it, he was just like, I can just go all out on this. I mean, if I can say, like in the Dynamics book, he says, this is how you do it, it's correct, it works all the time, or whatever. This is how you do it, blah, blah. And then a year later, it's like, no, but this didn't work, and blah, blah. And he just completely changes the story, and people accepted it, right? So it's like he's doing the same thing with his KSW. It's like, this is how you do Scientology, it's correct, blah, 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 blah. My tech's correct, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't need anything more. And then he releases other stuff, and it's just like, what the hell? The contributions that were worthwhile in this period of forming the technology were help in the form of friendship, of defense, of organization, of dissemination, of application, of advices on results, and of finance. These were great contributions and were and are appreciated. Many thousands contributed in this way and made us what we are. Discovery contribution was not, however, part of the broad picture. We will not speculate here on why this was so or how I came to rise above the bank. Hubbard, you rose above the bank. Hubbard rose above the bank. This is more propaganda that Scientologists, they don't realise it, but they're reading this, but it's got data in there that sinks into your mind and affects you in the future and you don't understand. So you hear someone talk about insane behaviour that Hubbard was doing, right? And because you've read this years earlier, where he mentions he rose above the bank, and you think, he must be a perfect person, like, he's not aberrated. And it's like, no, he is aberrated. Like, this is just where the problem, the difficulty with church members and even independents, because a lot of them have just gone with the idea that Miscavige messed up the technology in the church. They're just so brainwashed. They've just been told the world's getting hotter, the world's getting hotter, the world's getting hotter, the world's getting hotter, the world's getting hotter. And it just becomes true for them, and it just becomes their reality. And then when someone says to them, well, actually global cooling's happening, global warming is a complete scam, or Trump says global warming is a Chinese scam, or whatever, it's just like, oh, that's ridiculous, I can't believe that, or something. And it's just like, you have been so brainwashed. So Scientologists are so brainwashed, and this is just one little thing of many that you get to think that Hubbard's perfect. But that thing is him saying he rose above the bank. We are dealing only in facts, and the above is a fact. The group, left to its own devices, would not have evolved Scientology. Actually, this is another point as well. And anyone who's involved with brainwashing knows this. It's like the 1984 idea of Winston Smith when he's getting brainwashed by that guy. And it's, you just repeat an idea over and over again and it becomes true to a person. It's just a classic thing you have to understand with propaganda. You just repeat an idea and it eventually becomes true. So you just say it's getting hotter, it's getting hotter, it's getting hotter, and then people just it ends up becoming true for them. Or you say to that person, hey, I think you're gay, you're gay, you're gay, you're gay. Hey, you're a bit gay, aren't you? Yeah, you're gay. Aren't you a bit gay? And then the person starts actually feeling like they're gay, even though they're not gay, and they get confused by it. So in this, it's just like you just keep on repeating the typical Scientology ideas. The same things. Hubbard's perfect, I'm right, the text's right, the text's right, the text's right. You just keep on repeating it. And even if it's something ridiculous, like you're not gay, but someone's saying you're gay, and it's just not the truth, you just keep on saying it, and eventually the person starts believing it. And in one of the interviews I did, one of them with Robert Dam, is the church were accusing him of doing an overt. He hadn't done it. But they just kept on saying, you've done an overt, 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 basically over and over and over again. Eventually you started believing, going, oh my God. And it's like Winston Smith out of the 1984 book. They keep on just pounding into him until he just gives up and it's just like, oh my God, yeah, 2 + 2 = 5. So this is just a key if you want to, I guess, brainwash someone or something. You just have to keep on repeating something. And salesmen use this tactic, I reckon. When they do the little spiel, they might say, this is a great deal. And it's not really a great deal, but you just, throughout their conversation, they keep on dropping, it's a great deal, yes, a good deal, yes, not, it's a good deal. You keep on mentioning it, and eventually the person starts to believe it. Anyway. The group, left to its own devices, would not have evolved Scientology, but with wild dramatizations of the bank called New Ideas, would have wiped it out. Supporting this is the fact that man has never before evolved workable mental technology, and they still haven't. No, I do think man has evolved. This is again Hubbard basically saying Scientology is the only thing that has workable technology, and it's just like there's other workable technology, and Scientology isn't that workable. But I guess he's kind of right. Workable mental technology. Has man evolved workable mental technology? I think it is. I think one of the workable mental technologies is just meditation. You could just do daily meditation for half an hour every day. And that can help you. That's workable technology. But I do believe that psychology as a subject, psychiatry, is even less workable than Hubbard stuff. But that's because it's become more about employment and making money than actually helping people, which things just continually end up going down that path of just like someone wanting to make money off it and corrupts it. You could kind of say that's what happened with Hubbard and stuff. Like probably Scientology might have been actually in the right direction, but Hubbard increased prices and made it more about money and controlling people. And when you look into the way Hubbard, this is why that Janus book is so good, because you see the way how you find out about how he treated his own kids, and his son committed suicide because he didn't like the pressure and his controlling dad and stuff. So you get an idea, because we're all like Hubbard's little kids. You know, he was controlling us and stuff. Anyway, man has never before evolved workable mental technology, and emphasizing it is the vicious technology he did evolve: psychiatry, psychology, surgery, shock treatment, whips, duress, punishment, etc. ad infinitum. And then he goes on to invent like these crazy punishment things like the running program and stuff. Wow, it's just crazy. And also Scientology Scientology is a type of psychology. It's a type of mental therapy. But it doesn't involve the crazy treatments and stuff. But partially the reason that psychiatry ended up doing crazy shit like killing people and doing like electric shock and taking out people's brains and stuff. Part of the reason why this was condoned was that it was for experimental reasons to try and understand the mind more, but also the fact that the people who go to the psychs are usually like quite degraded and stuff, and the government doesn't mind these people getting killed, basically. So it's like a eugenics program. Do you know what I mean? So it's like if there are people that are nutters, and you're running society, and you don't really think there is a cure for people who are nutters, and I don't really think there is. Like people who are actual nutters, like you go into an actual psych ward, and it's like some of these people they're just like defective bodies and stuff, like they're actually messed up. Some wires disconnected when they were being formed or something, and they're just messed up. You've got some faulty DNA. Well, what do? Do you just keep on having them in these psych wards causing problems for nurses, or do you kill them? And so I just think that certain people within the government knew that some of these psychs were literally murdering patients, and they didn't care. They were like, yeah, good, get rid of it, because these people are messed up. And that's also why I think that they've put into some of the psych medications, they've put the side effect of suicide. I literally think that they're designer drugs, and they chose those chemical concoctions because they give people the side effect of wanting to kill themselves, because they want mentally ill people to kill themselves, because it's part of the eugenics operation. They don't want those people staying alive and having children and passing on their shitty DNA. So they consider it the right thing to do to sell psych drugs that don't work, that actually make the person want to kill themselves, because they don't want mentally ill people around. It's kind of like a Nazi eugenic idea. I actually think that's the case, because it just seems so strange that the drug would have a side effect of suicide. It just seems fascinating. And it also seems strange that the drug would have a side effect of stopping ejaculation. That's quite interesting. It really seems like they want to stop these people who get these drugs, stop them from making babies, and hopefully kill them. So that we get them out of our society. So, anyway, Hubbard never mentions that in any of his stuff. He never mentions that it's actually these problems with psychiatry are actually intentional. You know, it's like that's a eugenics operation, or that's a depopulation thing. That's what they want. You know, he never mentions that. He just rails on it and attacks it. And it's just like some of these problems with psychiatry are actually intentional. So realize that we have climbed out of the mud by whatever good luck and good sense, and refuse to sink back into it again. See that 7, 8, 9 and 10 above are ruthlessly followed, and we will never be stopped. Relax then, get reasonable about it, and we will perish. So far, while keeping myself in complete communication with all suggestions, I have not failed on 7, 8, 9 and 10 in areas I could supervise closely. But it's not good enough for just myself and a few others to work at this. Whenever this control as per 7, 8, 9 and 10 has been relaxed, the whole organisation area has failed. Witness Elizabeth, New Jersey, Wichita. The early organizations and groups. They crashed only because, and this is what's funny as well, stats have crashed at orgs and other places because Hubbard sent missions into those orgs to get the stats up. They've done hard sell, they've fucked up the org, and then the stats crash. And it's just like, here's giving you the idea that it's just like, no, Hubbard's perfect. The only thing that you can run into problems is people squirreling. And it's just like, no, you can run into problems where people apply hard sell and just wrecks the org. And it's not because people are squirreling. Then, when they were all messed up, you saw the obvious reasons for failure. But ahead of that, they ceased to deliver, and that involved them in other reasons. The common denominator of a group is the reactive bank. Thetans without banks have different responses. I honestly question the existence of the bank. It's a theory that Hubbard came up with in Dianetics. But he's really, I reckon, altered the importance of this bank thing and really sold it. The common denominator of a group is a reactive bank. I don't know. I mean, what if the common denominator of a group is the fact that you're just a human? Or love or something, you know, like... Anyway, Thetans without banks have different responses. They only have their banks in common. I don't think you can ever come up... I don't think Hubbard ever produced a Thetan without a bank. His technology ever produced a Thetan without a bank. But reading this, it gives you the impression that Scientology can actually get rid of people's banks. And it's just like, no, it doesn't seem to get rid of it. They only have their banks in common. They agree then only on bank principles. And you know what's funny about Scientology is he rips on psychology and stuff. And I heard someone doing an analysis on Freud's life, and he was someone who studied Freud and then believed in it and then found out a lot of it was bullshit. And it sounded so similar to someone talking about Scientology. Where Freud like came up with theories and then changed them and then was like, oh, this is what's going on, no, that's what's going on, and then like just did dodgy things, Freud, and it was just sounded so similar to Hubbard, and it just made me realize like people need to know that like Scientology is started off with Freudian stuff, and Hubbard was a psychologist, basically. He was into the mind and therapy, and he came up with his... And psychology was like a scam. It wasn't fully correct about people's problems for things. And Hubbard just continued that and came up with his own theories and stuff. And it's kind of a scam. But, yeah, anyway. It's like you'll have a problem with someone and them being insane or something, and then Scientologists or Freudianists will have their theories, and then just theories, and then like, you know, the truth ends up being something physical, like in the physical universe, not these whole spiritual memory ideas and shit. They agree then only on bank principles. Person to person, the bank is identical. So constructive ideas are individual and seldom get broad agreement in a human group. An individual must rise above an avid craving for agreement from a humanoid group to get anything decent done. The bank agreements has been what has made Earth a hell. And if you were looking for hell and found Earth, it would certainly serve. War, famine, agony, and disease has been the lot of man. Right now, the great governments of Earth have developed the means of frying every man, woman, and child on the planet. That is bank. That is the result of collective thought agreement. The decent, pleasant things on this planet come from individual actions and ideas that have somehow gotten by the group idea. For that matter, look how we ourselves are attacked by public opinion, media. Yet there is no more ethical group on this planet than ourselves. You know, it's probably a lot more ethical in the 60s, but that's just not true. I mean, you get involved with the church, and you just find out shit, and you're just like, what the hell? Like, just dodgy businesses and people doing dodgy things, and you're just like, this isn't ethical. And then you look at Hubbard, and he wasn't ethical. And I know sometimes he did some dodgy things in order to stand up for what was right, but he was just like, wow. I mean, the abuse and the trauma that he caused to the people who were around him, I'm sure he's super ethical. Like, his daughter wanted to leave the Sea Org, and of course he made it hard on her to leave. And then when she was going to leave, she wanted to take her kid with her, and Hubbard didn't want his grandson taken away. And so he ended up pressuring his daughter into giving up custody of her kid. And the daughter was like, you know, crying, and was obviously really messed up. And just like, he just traumatized his daughter by taking his daughter's kid. Because he goes off the philosophy of do what thou wilt. And so, you know, he wanted these grandkids, so he just like, he treated his daughter like trash. And then you know, it's just like, is that ethical behavior? You know, I don't know. I think ethical behavior is right, nice, loving survival conduct. And, you know, you've got a daughter, you don't steal your daughter's baby. You know, like, it's just like, what the hell? It's just crazy, man. Thus, each one of us can rise above the domination of the bank, and then as a group of freed beings achieve freedom and reason. It is only the aberrated group, the mob, that is destructive. When you don't do 7, 8, 9 and 10 actively, you are working for the bank-dominated mob, for it will surely A. introduce incorrect technology and swear by it, B. apply technology as incorrectly as possible, C. open the door to any destructive idea, and D. encourage incorrect application. It's the bank that says the group is all and the individual nothing. It's the bank that says we must fail. So just don't play that game. Do 7, 8, 9 and 10 and you will knock out of your road all the future thorns. Here's an actual example in which a senior executive had to interfere because of a PC spin. A case supervisor, PC spin means a PC is like gone messed up and getting confused. A case supervisor told instructor A to have auditor B run process X on pre-clear C. See all these thingos, these A, B, C's and all this shit. Like, it's a lot to swallow when you're just like, whoa, what the hell? Anyway, auditor B afterwards told instructor A that it didn't work. Instructor A was weak on 3 above and didn't really believe in 7, 8, 9 and 10. So instructor A told the case supervisor, process X didn't work on pre-clear C. Now this strikes directly at each of 1 to 6 above in pre-clear C. Auditor B, instructor A and the case supervisor. It opens a door to the introduction of new technology and to failure. You see how when this is basically saying, hold on, what happened here? Instructor A didn't jump down Auditor B's throat. That's all that happened. This is what he should have done. Grabbed the auditor's report and looked it over. When a high executive on this case did so, she found that the case supervisor and the rest missed that process X increased pre-clear C's TA to 25 TA divisions for the session. But that near session end, Auditor B cued an aid with a cognition and abandoned process X while it still gave high TA and went off running one of Auditor B's own manufacture, which nearly spun pre-clear C. Auditor B's IQ on examination turned out to be about 75. Instructor A was found to have huge ideas of how you must never invalidate anyone, even a lunatic. The case supervisor was found to be too busy with admin to have any time for actual cases. So see how this example is given us, which it makes sense. It's like you've told someone to do a process. They've done it like wrongly, and then they're saying, oh, it's not working. And it's like, no, you did it wrong. Right? You got to do the right tech, you know what I mean? Get 7, 8, 9 points put in, you know. But then the problem is, in the future, you run into problems where things don't work because the tech kind of doesn't work and stuff, and then you think, oh, it must be because the person's done the tech wrong, and blah 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 blah, and you got to do 7, 8, 9, 10, and it's like, no, like it's the tech has some mistakes. All right, there's an all too typical example. So I'm just going to leave it at there. I'll leave it at that, and I'll come back because I've got it to... Okay, yeah, I did like 3 pages. So there's only 3 more pages to go, so I'm going to do the rest in a part 3. I don't even want to do a part 3. I can't even really be bothered, but I'll just do it because I'm interested in seeing what more is in this KSW, because it's such an important Scientology document. And then I literally only want to do like 2 more briefings, and then I just want to get these interviews. I really want to interview John Attack. Anyway, that's it for this podcast. I've been your host, Andy Dolch, the Space Cowboy. You've been listening to the Indie Scientology podcast. So remember, what you thought was impossible is possible.